Welcome back to LCAT English Preparation course. In today's lecture, we're focusing on sentence completion questions, which is one of the most strategic question types you ever encounter on the LCAT. Now, sentence completion questions test two things. First, they could be testing your vocabulary knowledge, and secondly, they test your understanding of the sentence logic. Now, the good news is, even if you don't know all the vocabulary words, you can still get these questions right by using the context clues and strategic thinking. Today, we'll cover both longer passage based completions, the type that you'll actually see on the digital SAT or on the LCAT. But by the end of this 20-minute lecture, you'll have a systematic method of tackling any sentence completion question. So let's dive in. Before we look at examples, you need to understand what these questions are actually testing. They're not just testing if you know the definition of a word, they're testing if you understand how ideas flow logically. So, one thing that is really essential in sentence completion questions is the flow of ideas and trying to make sense of the sentence logic. Now, every piece of a text has logic, a flow of idea that makes sense. Your job is to identify that logic and choose the completion that fits the best. So there are three types of structures you can observe in a sentence completion question. First one is a restatement, or also known as continuation or support. This means that the blank that continues to support the same idea. Okay, so in a given sentence, the blank continues to support a given idea that is stated before that. So for this kind of context clue, you can look at the signal words like and, also, moreover, furthermore, and you can also look at in fact, indeed, because, since, because they show a connection between your blank and your sentence before it. And this connection is the connection of restatement or continuation. So, in this sense, you can get what the sentence follows and understand the logic of the sentence. Now, the next relation that you can see is contrast, or the blank contrasts with or opposes the another idea of the sentence. Now, the signal words over here that you can look for are but, however, although, while, despite, nevertheless, on the other hand, yet. So these are the words that if you see in a sentence, you can understand that the given blank is contrasting your idea before. So an example of this could be, although the method was expensive, it proved dish. Now, although or words like this actually tell you that there's a contrast in the relation between the blank and the sentence. So when I'm saying that although the method was expensive, it proved dish. Now, it means that despite the cost, it was something positive, something effective or valuable. Okay, so let's go to the next one, which is cause and effect. So it shows a logical consequence or a result. The blank is the result or the cause of something. So here the signal words can be because, since, therefore, so, hence, thus, consequently, this indicates that, this suggests that, or as a result of. So these are kind of words that you can look for and identify the relation of cause and effect in a sentence. For example, the data showed clear patterns, therefore, the researchers concluded. Now, because it showed clear patterns, the researchers made a conclusion out of that previous sentence, and they said that the blank is a logical conclusion from the patterns. The researchers concluded the results accurately because it was clear. Modern sentence completions aren't just one sentence. They're short passages that are 2 to 4 sentences with a logical completion. Now, for this, you have to identify a systematic approach or certain strategies to enable yourself to solve these questions easily and also take much less time. So, now let's go to the step by step method that I suggest for this part of the LCAT. Step 1 is to read the entire passage carefully. Now, when I say read the entire passage carefully, it means that you have to read it actively. You have to understand that if you don't understand the sequence of ideas in your passage, you won't be able or be easily able to identify the relation. So, throughout the passage, actively read it. Okay, so the next one is identify the main idea and logic. Because the passages are just four to five lines long, so you can easily identify the main idea in your sentence because that is the main focus of the entire passage. And if you identify the main idea, it will help you eliminate some answers. Step 3 is predict the answer. Don't look at the options as of yet. Now, this is a very important strategy because there are certain options that actually mislead you to wrong answers. Now, to avoid that and to be able to save your time and quickly get the correct answer, what you can do is you can predict the answer without looking at the options. In that way, you won't be misguided by other answers. Next one is the read all choices. Now, when you select your answer, when you predict your answer, you can get some idea of what you're looking for in your answer choices. So you read them all and eliminate your answers that you don't think are insinuating or are correct. So we're going to work up a passage example from the digital SAT to and use these steps that I just mentioned. So let's read this passage. In her 2021 article, Throwaway History Towards a Historiography of Ephemera, scholar Anne Garner discusses John Johnson, a devoted collector of items intended to be discarded, including bus tickets and campaign pamphlets. Johnson recognized that scholarly institutions considered his extensive collection of ephemera to be worthless. Indeed, it wasn't until 1968, after Johnson's death, that university's Palladian Library acquired the collection. Having grapes Having grasped the item's potential value to historians and other researchers, hence the example of Johnson serves to demonstrate the difficulties faced by contemporary historians in conducting research at the library without access to ephemera. Next one is represent the challenge of incorporating examples of ephemera into collections of libraries and other scholarly institutions. Option C is lend support to arguments by historians and other researchers who continue to assert that ephemera holds no value for scholars. And option D is illustrate both the relatively low scholarly regard in which ephemera was once held and the later recognition of ephemera's possible utility. Now, once we've read the passage completely, let's identify the main logic. So let me break down what happened in the passage. So here it says that Johnson collected ephemera, that is, throwaway item. Scholars thought that it was worthless at first. Later, in 1968, Oxford University recognized that it has a potential value. Therefore, we will see over here that hence or therefore shows their example of what I said, that of a result. So we see that hence the example of Johnson serves The logic over here says that it shows that it went from something being worthless to valuable. Before looking at the options, I'll take something like show how attitude towards ephemera changed from negative to positive, or demonstrate that scholars actually recognize the value in what they dismissed once. Now, let's read the answer choices again. Once that we were able to predict our answer based on the passage. Now, here, demonstrate the difficulties faced by contemporary historians in conducting research at the library without access to ephemera. This is not our main concern. The main concern over here is a change of perspective or a change of value. So, this is for now not the correct option. The next one is represent the challenge of incorporating examples of ephemera into the collections of libraries and scholarly institutions. The passage never mentions that it was challenging to incorporate ephemera into libraries. It just says it took time. So, this again, there is no discussion of difficulty, so I'm going to eliminate this option as well. The next one says lend support to arguments by historians and other researchers who continue to assert that ephemera holds no value for scholars. No, this is completely the opposite of what the passage requires, because it says that it has no value. However, the passage's main idea shifts from ephemera being worthless to it being valuable. So, therefore, this is also incorrect. And the next one is illustrate both the relatively low scholarly regard in which ephemera was once held and the later recognition of ephemera's possible utility. This is what we're looking for exactly. So I'm just going to highlight this as our correct answer, because again, this is showing that they illustrate both the relatively low scholarly regard in which ephemera was once held and the later recognition that it gained because of its possible utility. So the key was recognizing hence. Now this hence signals that we need a conclusion that captures the change in attitude from dismissing to recognizing its value. So let's just again look at the strategies and some things that we use to eliminate answers. Number one is going to be why option D. Why option D is correct. Now, firstly, it captures both parts of the narrative. It talks about before and about after. It uses precise language. Once held shows time shift. And it directly answers what does the example serve to do. Other choices failed because option A was, firstly, contradictory. It did not show how difficult conducting research was. Option B was assumption based because there was no support of this idea that it was challenging for them to incorporate that. And again, option C was the opposite point. We can see over here that option C was the opposite point. So that's why it is wrong again. Now let's go to the next passage. One aspect of in-person shopping that online shopping can't replicate is the opportunity to touch a product before buying. Does that difference matter? In an experiment, researchers asked one group of the participants to touch a mug and a toy, while other group was prohibited from touching the two items. The participants were asked how much money they'd pay for the item. People who got to touch the items were willing to pay much more than those who weren't allowed to touch the items. Now, the finding suggests, here the word suggests is our key word. So, the options are people who mainly shop online probably spend more money every month than people who mainly shop in person. In-person shopping make may make products seem more valuable than they seem only viewed online. Retailers with in-person and online stores should charge the same price for a given product in both places. Online retailers may be able to raise the prices they charge for products that are only available online. Now let's utilize our step-by-step method. First one is let's go to trace the logic. Now they say that in-person shopping, in-person shopping, people can touch their products, whatever they're trying to buy, and online shopping is that they can only view that, right? So the experiment can consisted of two groups: a group of people that were allowed to touch the items and another that were not allowed to touch. Yet it's very prohibited from doing that. Now the result was that the people who were able to touch the items were willing to pay much more money for the items than those who weren't allowed to touch the items. Now the logic that follows is if you were able to touch the item, you'd be willing to pay more, which makes product. So then therefore something about in-person versus online. Now predicting the answer, I can say that it can be about touching products makes people value them more, or in-person shopping makes products seem more valuable than online shoppings. That is just we wait. So now let's go to our answer choices and just eliminate wrong options. Number one, option A says people who mainly shop online probably spend more money than every month than people who mainly shop outside. Now, this is again opposite of doing that. So, if anything, if a person in person shoppers spend more, not less. So, the passage doesn't discuss monthly spending at all. So, there are two misleading things over here: monthly spending, and again, that they online shoppers spend more money, which is wrong. So, we're going to eliminate this answer once and for all. The next one is in-person shopping may make products seem more valuable than they seem if we viewed online. And this is again directly connected to what we were looking for. It is about online versus in-person, right? It shows how the value changes. So I'm going to select this option for now. The next one is retailers with in-person and online stores should charge the same price for a given product in both places. Now the passage doesn't tell us what retailers should do. It just reports an experiment finding. Also, if touching makes people willing to pay more, this might actually suggest that charging different prices. This might actually suggest charging different prices, not the same. So we'll eliminate this option as well. And again, option D is online retailers may be able to raise the prices they charge for products that are only available online. This again is contradictory because this doesn't follow from the finding. The experiment showed that not being able to touch the items makes it people less willing to pay, not more. So online retailers probably cannot raise the prices. So I'm going to eliminate this answer as well. And so the correct answer is again option B, because this finding suggests that over here we see this finding suggests that shows a result connection of a result. So we need to find a logical consequence of this experiment, which means that in-person shopping, higher value, online shopping, lower value. Again, this kind of questions are called research-based passages because they provide a background to you, background or question. They are talking about some kind of experiment, methodology, and then the results. And you have to interpret these results. Your job is to choose the interpretation that directly follows from the passage. Don't go beyond what is stated because a lot of the times again, the options try to guide you towards the wrong one. So always know that in these kind of passages, predict your answers. Make sure that your answers do not contradict the finding and your answer is something that connects to the original topic. So let's go to the final and the third example. The main goal of Association for Advancement of Creative Musicians AACM, an arts organization founded in 1965, is to advance new works by Black musicians. The AACM achieves this goal in part by focusing on young artists. By having established musicians, composers serve as mentors, the AACM gives young artists the benefit of expert technical training and creative guidance. Numerous organizations offer similar kinds of support to new generations of painters, writers, and other artists, suggesting that, again, this also shows a kind of result result relation. So, suggesting that is the word that we're looking for. Options are artists of all ages benefit more from technical training than from creative guidance. Option B, many art organizations recognize the importance of providing opportunities for young artists to learn from experienced mentors. Most established artists could become even better artists by serving as mentors. And option D is finding a mentor is more important for musicians than it is for painters, writers, and other types of artists. Now, as I was reading the options, I hope that you were able to analyze and understand that some of these options actually are pointless. So let's go through our strategy. First one was to read the passage that we have done. The next one is identify the main logic or the flow of idea. So let's do that. So it says that AACM supports young Black musicians. The method, it says that established musicians mentor younger ones. So established musicians mentor younger ones. Now the benefit is that they gain expert technical training and also creative guidance. And the key word right here is numerous organizations offer similar support to young painters. So this is not just one of the organizations. There are numerous organizations that do that. And lastly, signal word that we're looking for is suggesting. Now the logic says that AACM does something and many organizations AACM does something, many organizations also do something, and therefore this is a widespread practice, which suggests that. So I'm going to predict that the answer will be many organizations see value in mentoring young artists, or mentorship is a widely recognized and an important thing for developing young artists. Okay, so all artists of all ages benefit from technical training than from creative guidance. Now, this passage doesn't show that they do technical, there's a comparison between technical training or creative guidance. This is something that you were supposed to avoid because some of the wrong answers actually compare two things that are not being compared at all. So this is the wrong answer. I'm going to eliminate that. Next one is many art organizations recognize the importance of providing opportunities for young artists to learn from experienced mentors. Now let's look at the parts of what the sentence is saying. Number one is many art organizations. Is it correct? Yes, because in the passage we're talking about AACM and also other numerous organizations that do this. Then recognize the importance. Indeed, they are actively doing this. They're suggesting that it has some value. Next is providing opportunities. Again, yes, that's exactly what they're doing. They are trying to provide opportunities to people. And from learned experienced mentors, this is perfectly established as well in the passage because the elder and expert artists are actually teaching the younger ones. So this quite frankly captures what numerous organizations are doing. So this is a very strong match for our correct option. Next one is learn more. Most established artists could become even better artists by serving as mentors. The passage focuses on young artists benefiting, not on how mentorship helps established artists improve. So this actually flips the focus. So I'm going to eliminate this answer. Next one is again that the best finding a mentor is more important for musicians than it is for painters, writers, and other types of artists. The passage says there are numerous organizations that offer similar kinds of support to painters, writers, and musicians. This suggests that mentorship is being provided equally across all forms of art, not one art form is more important than the other one. So I'm going to eliminate this answer as well. So correct one is answer B because it says that numerous organizations offer similar support while suggesting that we need a conclusion that is a widespread practice. It indicates broad recognition of the mentorship value. Now, what do you extract from this passage? When you see suggesting that, indicating that as a result of, similarly, along the same lines, therefore, hence, these are the kind of things that show that there is a relation of result, cause, and effect. So look at what comes right before it. Read the lines that are before it, right? Then the answer should be a logical imperative on the evidence. It should have a logical flow. And do not choose the answers that flip the focus, as you saw in option C of the last passage, that are showing improper comparison. Now, improper comparison is again in option D, and there's talking about some unsupported claims, which the passage is not even focusing on. So that is something that you have to avoid when you're answering such questions. Now let's go through the summary. The complete approach is that for all passage-based sentence completions, one thing that you do is read the passage, look for main point, argument, or relation. For understanding the relation, pay attention to signal words like however, despite of, suggest, inference, since these are kinds of words that you are looking for in your passage. And a very important tip is to predict your answers because it puts answer on your words first and it prevents you from being misled by clever wrong answers. And then eliminate. Now, eliminate the sentences that contradict the stated facts, go beyond what's discussed, flip the focus, or require assumptions that are not supported. And even there are some options that use extreme language. So therefore, you're not supposed to use that or choose that. And so some things that you have to avoid are number one, if the answer is too specific or too general, that doesn't match the scope of the passage. Now, for example, in the last one, we saw that the passage discussed many organizations. However, if any of the answer choices is about a single organization that is too specific, so you are not supposed to choose that. Then the next one would be if the answer goes beyond the text. Now, beyond the text means it requires outsider knowledge or your assumptions. For example, in option C of the last passage, we saw that it talked about how mentors who were teaching the younger ones would become better mentors by doing so. Now, this is something that you can assume of your own, but however, it's not discussed in the passage. So you can avoid this kind of answer. Next one is the almost answer. Now, the almost answer gets some certain part of the passage right, but indicates that something is wrong. There is always a single word or even one or two words that show that it is wrong. So always check every part of the sentence in your answer and do not look for like a specific point. The next one is the sounds good answer. The sounds good answer is something that looks sophisticated but doesn't fit the logic. For example, in option A of example 2, we saw that they were talking about monthly spending, which again sounds plausible that online shoppers would have a higher monthly spending than those who are going for in-person shopping. Now, this sounds plausible but is not supported again. It sounds good, however, it's not something that fits the logic. So I'm going to avoid that kind of answer choice as well. And then lastly, the opposite answer. Now, there were many examples of this in our three passages. So it states the reverse of what the passage is saying. For example, in example 1, it says in option C, I believe, it said that ephemera had no value. However, the passage was completely the opposite of it, right? So these are some things that you if you look for and if you avoid, is going to save you a lot of time. Now, some practical advice I will give you is for passage-based completion sentences on LCAT, spend 60 to 90 minutes or about 1 minute per question, and about first read the passage, then analyze your answer choices and evaluate them and verify them. Now, if you're stuck, eliminate what you can eliminate. Choose the one that's more conservative or best supported answer. And if you don't, you can just move on because you don't have to spend over 3 minutes on a single passage. That will just be a very huge waste of time. So, the passage based sentence completions reward careful reading and logical thinking. You don't need to be a genius, you just have to have a systematic way of approaching them. Follow those steps that I mentioned in this video and pay attention to signal words. Practice your sentence completion and Allah Hafiz.